Now the printer settings page is all done, we want to look at really start adding some error handling to this application. It's getting complicated enough that we're going to soon start crashing, and if we don't handle exceptions, the entire application is just going to close on us. So we want a nice way to report and show those errors. A good place to start will be this default shouldn't be able to be edited or deleted. So let's just make the code correct where it should throw if that is attempted. It should be in update print settings call. This is for the can edit. So if we go in here in the minute, we just literally allow it and let it be edited. So what we want to do for this is say if it is not editable, and it will be if data model dot can edit. So if we can't edit and we're trying to edit, and then we'll throw a new invalid operation, I'd say this is. And what we can do is pass an error. So cannot, or this print setting cannot be edited. And then we could pass in some information. You have to be careful on throwing exceptions that you absolutely don't make an exception while doing this. So if we were to do something like, data model dot, and then something that could be null, say this could be null. So print settings of profile dot first and ID. Then you might crash on here because you're accessing a null object. So just make sure when you're making actual exceptions to be thrown, you don't end up throwing another one yourself. So for now, we'll just pass in the name, and then we throw this up. Now, we might want to wrap this in future with more detail, such as where it's coming from, so the database service, or we might be able to reflect into this and automatically pull that information. So for now, we just do the actual throw. We'll do the same for the delete, but this one will be a little bit more complicated. So we get the existing, if it's null, we return, and now we want to do the same if this item is not deletable. That's even a word. So if the not existing item dot can delete, if you can't delete it, we'll then throw another exception. Just copy and paste that. And this one cannot be deleted. This will be existing item. Now the problem we're going to have here straight away is if you can edit but you can't delete, then this will say, oh, you can edit, move on. It will attempt to delete, and this will come in here and fail to delete. But we don't actually want to delete it in this sense. We're just using this little trick as an easy way to edit the item. We're going to have to update this to support bypassing the checks, basically. And by default, the bypass will be false. And then we can say here, bypass is true. And now in here, we don't want to do this if we're bypassing. So if we're not bypassing and it can't be deleted, then we'll error out. The other thing to consider is if we can delete and then the add fails during an update, we've accidentally deleted the item and not added it back. So we don't want to end up in that situation either. So in that case, what we can do is simply not save the changes if we are bypassing the checks. But this bypass is not necessarily the same item. We might want one for save because you might want to bypass the delete check, but also still save. So we'll do another property called save changes. So by default is true, which we want. And then here, the default will be false for us. So this delete wants to delete the model, ignoring the fact that whether it can or can't be deleted, and just don't save the changes. So in here, we then do if save changes, we save. And then the normal call with defaults passed in, it won't bypass the check and it will save. So it still behaves the same for everybody else, but this now updates it and allows us to attempt to delete, go to add, and then when the add works, the save changes will be the only save changes, and both the add and delete will happen at the same time. Now that should be all tracked and happen correctly. And now if we try to delete one of those properties, I presume this is going to literally crash and the entire application die. So if we go to actions, we should be able to delete this one. So let's just delete him. And now this one shouldn't be deletable. So we go to delete. There we go. It hits this, throws an exception, and our application has just completely died on us. So that's the typical behavior when you don't handle crashes, and that's unexpected behavior for the end user. That's what we need to fix. So just before we get into making the error handling, let's just go back to this key value pair issue I mentioned before. All these key value pairs in the view models. I don't believe these need to be this. I think we can just fix our binding. So what I'm going to do is go into all of these places and change these for strings. So everywhere we see the key value pair, we'll just change it for a string. And then we're going to attempt to fix the binding because there's no point in doubling up on all these values. It makes no sense to kind of do this. It's just duplicate data for the sake of pleasing a view model. And that's not what we should really be doing in the code. If we can help it, we should have the view model work for us. And that's all of this view model changed now. It's basically all of these observable collections and all of the properties are changed. If we carry on scrolling down now, these can be not dot value on the key value pair, it can just be the actual value. And then the data model is already a string correctly, so we don't need to fix that. And we need to fix them here as well. So we don't need a new string at all, we just literally need the data model's names. And that's all those fixed. So that's the printer settings profile view model. Let's take a look at the view as well. Printer settings view. And we want where we're binding to things like paper size. Here we go. We have the sort members that are looking into key value pairs with dot value. So we need to remove them and just do the string itself. And that's all of those. And then inside the bindings, let's take a look at what we do. We bind to value here for display member. Well, we don't need that now because the display member will automatically be just binding, which is a string. So I presume we can just delete display member binding. I'm wondering why we did this in the first place. Like, what obstacle did we hit that required us to add a key value pair? I think it was probably just a mistake looking at this because I can't really see any requirement for this to have a key value pair. I really don't know why we did it, to be honest. So with the view done, let's build and just see where else is a problem. Now in the to view model, we have to do the same conversion here. So delete these and change them to this and just do the same for all of these. And that's better. And then build again. And we've still got more. So now we've got to fix all this. Same principle again. Just replace all the key value pairs for strings. And that looks like that. And then the same again, these checks, get rid of the value. And you're just comparing strings. And then this is going to now complain because this is just a key value pair empty array. And that is because these print settings in available printers, I believe then, will be the problem. So if we go to printer services, we check out available printers, which is printers view model. We still have these hidden key value pair strings here. Get rid of that, compile again. And then that brings us back to here. And then exactly the same principle. Delete these and just have strings instead of key value pairs. And then build again. One more error. And now this is to do with the printer name options. This is a key value pair again, which is because we still left it up here as a key value pair. That's now a string. This now wants to be the name. And does that now compile? Right, as that now compiles, we presume we have a working UI still now, but with strings instead of key value pairs. Let's see. Yep, that seems to be now correct. We also seem to have fixed that double default error we had somehow. And everything seems to be working nice and smoothly. If we save, there we go. We've now got this error that is correct. So this is where we want to be now. We've got the fact that you can't edit things and it's crashing out and bobbing out on us. So what do we want to do now? Well, when the application crashes, it bubbles up to the thing that's hooked in at the top level. So that will be in the app. That will be inside of the build command. So if we actually run it, you'll see. If we breakpoint on the crash, you can see just double clicking in the call thread down here. It's going to bubble right the way up to this because start with classic desktop will invoke here, which starts the lifetime, which starts the call, which hooks into the main UI thread and effectively waits on this main UI thread. And the main UI thread is going to be this here. So application life cycle, desktop. So it's going to bubble right the way up to kind of up here. That's where we'll want to catch at some point. But for now, before catching, let's just build the UI. And we can throw and remake a new window. So even though this window will crash, the application would still be running if we catch, and we could just spin up a new window. So let's just make a nice looking Avalonia error window to start with. That will need a new view model. So let's just copy this view model over, call it error view model. And we don't need it to be a dialog, you just want it to be a view model base. Observable property, we really just want 2 properties for now, I think. Title and description, maybe. We can always add more after. And this can be default values, say unknown error and unknown error description. Let's just give it some defaults. After that, we're going to want to remake a main window and main view, but for an error. So if we make a new window, so we'll right click on the view, add, and we'll do a window. We'll call this one error window. And then in here, we want to mimic the main window. So we can just copy that, go into here, paste that. We want to set the width and height a lot smaller. So if we do, say, I don't know, 500 and 350, something smaller. Min width the same, min height the same. The title, we can say batch process error. The view model can be error view model. And this now wants to be error view, which we don't currently have. We need to make it. So I think that will be everything on the view, or everything on the window rather. Now we want to make a view, which is a user control. Call this one error view. And this just wants to then have something in it. So if we just build this now, do we still build? Duplicate class directive, batch process not main window. That wasn't to be named the name. There you go. Yeah, that wants to be error window. So the error is in here. We have a class of batch process dot error window. But the error window in here is inside the views namespace. So that just needs to be views, and that's because we copy and pasted this from main. And the main window technically doesn't have the views namespace. There we go. So now we have this window. Let's just try and get this to display before we start. This should also be smaller. There we go. So we want that in there. We want the app in here. Let's just say after the desktop one, we'll handle this properly at some other point, but we just want to show the window for now. So for that, all we'll do is say var error window equals new error window dot data context, and we will just do a new view model for now, and then error window dot show. We'll want to probably, well, let's just run that and see if it works first. Let's see if we just get a window popping up. Yep, there we go. So that just opens up with the application, but you can see if you click away, it's hidden behind. So we want to make that stay on top as well, which will be in here. Topmost is true. And let's run that again. And now we have a window on top. You can still click and use this, which I think is the behavior we want, because most errors pop up and it's a dialog, so you can't click back into this window and do things. But this is a more modern application, and the errors occurred, and locking it to this window makes no sense. You can still continue to use the app or restart it based on the user's preference. I don't see a need to kind of lock the user out of the application while this stays open. So let's just close that now. And the last thing we need to do is actually make this error view and bind it to the properties nicely. So in here, we'll start with the same as always, the design.dataContext, so we can see something based on a view model. And the view model, we don't have the namespace. So up here, we want the X amount namespace VM equals, and then it will be batch process 3 dot view models. And then in here, we can now do the error view model. That will allow the designer to show us. We'll do the background as static resource primary background. We'll do the foreground as foreground. And then in here, I think what we want is a grid. Is that still large? 500, 350. Oh yeah, we better just make this all the same as well as the window. So we'll do copy and paste that. There we go, we get a nice small window. We'll do a grid. And we will have, let's see, a label to start with, content, and we'll say an error has occurred. Let's do the class for a header. I think H2 is probably big enough. We'll want some padding, I guess, or margin in the case of a grid. That's nice. I think we'll put some emoji in here as well, a little shock face. There we go, so a little bit of modern text in there. And then below that we'll do another label with content, and this time we will say batch process has experienced an unexpected error. Please report it to us. And then we'll make this one the little gold glowy text, which is like this here, all subdirectories. That's sub1 we want as the class. And then we need now some rows. So row definitions, auto. Then we're going to have the title, and then the description can fill the remaining content. There we go. Maybe a slight bit of margin there. Yeah, like that. And then another label, content. Well, let's do grid.row this time first. Content is then the binding to the title, which should work, and it's not working. So what's this complaining about? Unable to infer data context. Oh yeah, you have to do the data type binding. Is it binding? Have a quick look. No, just like VM. So view model, and then this will be error view model. There we go, and now we can see unknown error. And then finally below that we want a text box so the user can select the text. It'll be the final row, so this should just fill, which it's doing now. We'll make it read-only, so they can't edit the error, it makes no sense, but you just want this box so that you can get scrolling and selectability of the text. And then text will be bound to the description. And I think that is it. We can add things like reporting the error, so a button that eventually will say send report, and we'll do some code behind that pushes it to our servers, so we get automatic reports of error logs when they want to. But for now, we'll just leave that window open and let it close. So let us run this and see if it works. That's it. We get a nice pop-up that shows an error, and the description's in here. You can't edit it, but you can select it to copy and paste. So we have now a nice little pop-up. We don't want that to happen though. That should be expanding in the window. Why does that not expand? Oh, that's because the background and foreground are on the control maybe, and not the grid. No, because the grid's not expanding. Min width, min height. Oh, I've set the width and height maybe. That's it. There we go. Now it resizes properly. So I think that's the error window all set up. We'll see that though, this, let's just turn this into a one-liner, will work here. But if the application crashes, then at the point of crashing, where we need to hook into will be up here. We need to try catch here to catch global exceptions. And inside here, we can't just do the newing up of an error. So you can't just say, comment that out and paste it in here and run the application. Because once this crashes, the actual place that handles doing something like this, creating new error messages and showing, it's meant to bind inside of here. So it has a parent. So this application is completely different if you run a new error window while inside of an application versus just inside of the main thread. It's not going to work. or at least I don't think it is. So if we just make this crash, you'll see we get the error, we throw up, and nothing appears. Now the application hasn't died, but it's completely locked and nothing's showing, so it's as good as dead. I think that's just because the debugger's attached. And if we double check it's hitting this, this will be where our problem lies, creating a second application of some form to show. So we might have to make even an error application and start the application. So if we delete to cause the error, this error bubbles up. You can see we catch the error, but just doing this .show doesn't work. You can see Avalonia's current expected behavior is to pretty much do what we're doing, try and catch here, but they just want to do a log. We want to get a more nice UI. So we really want to think on how we then show this and manage to get a brand new window to pop up, and potentially even catching the errors earlier is the other option. So you wouldn't normally just rely on everything bubbling right the way up to the top. You'd catch it before it happens on commands and events. But still, we want to be able to handle when it does actually bubble all the way up and it's completely unexpected and caught, to still be able to show a window as well. So we'll figure that one out next.